All right, you can hear me and see me fine. Happy Star Wars Day, everybody. May the 4th be with you. As I said on the first one, which the sound is choppy, I've been a big Star Wars fan for years, been a big part of my life, man. Star Wars was my first hardcore fandom, my fandom. Snoopy, I was a big fan of when I was a kid. Of course, Batman, I was a big fan of, and the comic books and of DC and Marvel, and Spider-Man was my jam. But those characters all existed before I existed. So I came into a world where they were there. It was like playing with your brother's toys. Star Wars came into a world that I existed in. And I was already 7 when Star Wars happened. Well, 6, on the verge of 7 when Star Wars happened. And it felt like it was made for us. It felt like, oh my God, this is ours. So it was different. It was the first real fandom where I had, you know, that this is mine. And we all spoke the same language, those of us that liked it. And that was the whole world and stuff, mostly kids. So, you know, it was, wow, that was a big old spider web, man. It was always a big feature in my childhood. I got to join, we were poor, but my mom got me a membership to the Star Wars fan club. Look at that, man. Look at, you can see the number. Please don't steal my fucking identity in the Star Wars fan club, the official Star Wars fan club. And then I liked it so much, I made the unofficial Star Wars fan club junior, man. Look at that. So I go deep with this shit. This is who sent it to me. They sent it from a magical place called Mount Morris, Illinois. Anybody ever heard of it? Anybody live there? That's where the Star Wars fan club sent their shit out. And they would send stuff like stickers and whatnot. So I loved the Star Wars movies when I was a kid, so much so I brought them into my adulthood when I started making movies. In Clerks, there's the Death Star contractor scene. In Mallrats, there's Silent Bob trying to move the cigarette with his mind. In Chasing Amy, Hooper's whole speech in the beginning at the Comic-Con about gentrification. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, I actually got to lightsaber fight with Mark Hamill, with Luke Skywalker himself. And my parents were there on set. And as, you know, we were between takes, Mark, on his full cock knocker regalia, talked to my parents and said to my mom, you must be so proud. Like, oh my Lord, this must make you so proud. Look at what your son's doing, man. And I don't know how it came. I don't know if it was maybe it was him going like, it must be, I think it was this. Yes. It must be so weird to see him go from a kid to all this. And my mom said, not really so weird. When he was a kid, he played with Luke Skywalker action figures. And no, she said, when he was a kid, he played with your action figure. And now he just plays with you. So I got, you know, obviously big fan. And it showed up in that work. Showed up later on in Jay and Silent Bob reboot with a character named Millennium Falcon. But in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Carrie Fisher played our nun. I think her exact credit is the Harry Bush nun, but maybe not on IMDb. But in any event, huge day for me because I was and still remain a massive Carrie Fisher fan. Not just like, oh, she was Princess Leia, although that's where I was introduced to her. Star Wars, I liked her in, of course, very much. But Empire Strikes Back, like that's where I fell in love with her. All that romantic shit with her and Han Solo and stuff. And then I watched all of her movies. Under the Rainbow. I remember I watched the Simon and Garfunkel concert in the park because I thought they might cut to her in the crowd because she was going out with Paul Simon at the time. So I was a big fan. I had Carrie Fisher pictures everywhere. And look at this. Hold on. I'll be right back. Don't go away. Look. See this shit? Galactically Yours, Carrie Fisher. And it looks like, you know, it was like fucking handwritten for years. I was like, she sent me a fucking handwritten picture. And then years later, I sent away for another one, hoping to get another. And they sent me the exact same one. So, you know, naturally it was a form thing. But I have that in a frame next to my bed growing up. I had Star Wars posters, very Princess Leia oriented. I had the Empire Strikes Back sheets. I told Carrie Fisher when we met, I was like, I had Empire Strikes Back sheets with Princess Leia all over them. I hate to tell you what happened to those sheets. And she was like, oh, I know. So meeting Carrie and having Carrie in the movie was a big fucking deal. And in order to be in the movie, Blues Brothers, Jordan Lee pointed out, I loved her in the Blues Brothers. You know, we made the same offer to extend the same offer we extended to everyone who was in the cast, which was scale, very minimum to be in the movie. Nobody got rich. Carrie didn't want the money. Carrie instead asked our casting director, I want the production to buy me this pair of antique beaver chairs that I've had my eye on. And so, we were like, all right. It was like $5,000 for these 2 chairs that had a beaver design. And then when I finally met her on set, I was like, can't thank you enough for doing this. I said, but beaver chairs, you got to explain that to me. She's like, well, I always wanted to get these chairs, but I didn't want to spend the money myself. So if you guys bought them, that made it easy. She's going, but also I thought it was very appropriate currency exchange for this movie, beaver chairs. I was like, So Carrie Fisher and I, after that flick, would email all the time. We got friendly and stuff, and not like every week or whatever, but periodically, every other month, we'd exchange emails and stuff. She was witty as fuck, acerbic as fuck, wonderful writer. Even her emails, even if they were short or long, they were memorable. So we had that kind of relationship. Brain Sugar, I think, was her email address. In any event, I had access to her and vice versa. I also had access, of course, to my message board, the VSQ message board at VSQ.com, our old website, which still exists. But the message board doesn't. And it was a big whiteboard that looked like Reddit and had been around since like late 95. That's when we started. Ming Chen from Comic Book Men created the VSQ message board. And so somebody on the message board, and this would be, I was living in California and I moved out here February 2002. So this would be somewhere between 2002 and 2005. CBD cigarettes. So someone on the message board said, hey man, I went to a show last night. Carrie Fisher show with her mom. I guess Carrie and her mom were doing Q&A tours or whatever. Or a show. And at the end, there was a Q&A, they said. And during the Q&A, somebody asked about Jane, Silent Bob Strike Back. And Carrie shit on it. She was just like, that movie, piece of shit, whatever, or something like that. Said some, nothing glowing. And I was bummed out because I was like, what the fuck, man? Like fucking, I thought we were buds. And, since I had her email address, I emailed her. And I was just like, what the fuck? I thought we were buds. I was like, if you didn't want to be in the movie, you didn't have to be in the movie. Like, why would you go around slagging the movie? I don't go around slagging you. All this, guilt-inducing shit. Layered on thick. Like, how could you do this to me, Princess Leia? And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the point of our story today. This is the greatest gift that Star Wars ever gave me. And mind you, I got a lot of shit out of Star Wars, man. I got the, all the references in the movie. My whole career, my movies are tied in with Star Wars. Death Star contractor scene in Clerks was the most talked about scene when the movie came out. Without Star Wars, maybe I got nothing, right? That all being said, and it gave me a happy childhood. We were poor, very poor, but my mom would still save money from my dad's paycheck and buy me Star Wars action figures, and that meant the world and stuff because that was the currency of childhood. I got a lot out of Star Wars. This is the single greatest thing I got out of Star Wars. A piece of advice from Carrie Fisher. Not even a piece of advice, a piece of wisdom. Wizened piece of Carrie Fisher's brain sugary mind was this. She read my email, I guess. She wrote back to me in a relatively timely fashion. And she said, oh, Kevin, did you fall prey to the internet? And then she wrote about how, like, you're like me, you get up on stages, you tell stories, you try to be funny. When you're up there, you say anything. If the audience attaches to it and laughs, you go with it. I was just being funny. She's going, you and I are friends. You know how I feel about you. You know what I think about your movie. Why would you let somebody on the internet said change all that? And then she dropped this truth bomb right in my lap, and I still use this today. This is a piece of knowledge that changed my life, and it wouldn't have happened without Star Wars, because without Star Wars, I wouldn't have known Carrie Fisher, and she wouldn't have been in Jane, Silent Bob Strike Back. Here you go. Carrie Fisher goes, sometimes you have to spin that microscope around because the thing you're looking at isn't as big as you think it is. That came from Carrie Fisher herself, man. Now, she may have just been like, fuck, he caught me, and I'm going to hit him with a truth bomb. But regardless, that is a piece of advice that I still adhere to today. When shit looks bleak, when when it feels like the whole world hates my movie or whatever the fuck, and fuck my movie. When it just like, when I read the news about, in a COVID era where I'm like, nothing will ever be the same. I remember the wizened words of my good friend and one-time crush, Carrie Fisher. Sometimes you got to spin the microscope around. Sometimes that thing you're looking at isn't as big as you think it is. As you're, it's very tiny. It just looked big because I was all the scrutiny and whatnot. So there it is, man. Genius piece of advice from a genius lady. I miss her. She was very cool. She was in this very house. Princess Leia was in my house. One time we had a poetry event for my kids' private school. Yes, just as bougie as it fucking sounds. That's how I opened the show. I was the MC and I was like, thank you all for donating to that most needy of causes, private school children. It was a poetry event for Poetry Month, which I think was February. And we did it as a fundraiser for the school. So we held it in my house. And we fit 100, 200 people in the house. And we had cool people, including the great Stan Lee, read God Woke, his poem, as well as The Raven in 2 separate events. Johnny Rotten was here, Eva Longoria. It was crazy, the amount of people that we had reading poetry, but one of them was Carrie Fisher. So I was getting up in between each poetry thing going, hey, thanks for that. Now the next one is this, being the MC. Carrie Fisher grabbed me between intros while somebody was up, and she was like, I didn't fucking know you were going to be joking around and fucking cursing and shit like that. She's like, I brought a serious poem to read. I thought this was a serious poetry event. I was like, you can do whatever you want with your time. I mean, I'm just up there, everyone's drinking. I'm trying to keep things light and stuff. So yeah, don't feel any pressure. You don't have to, be like, you don't have to be anything serious. They're just happy to see you. And so she goes, well, I'm going to change my approach. I said, all right. And then she got up when I introduced her. I was like, ladies and gentlemen, Carrie Fisher. And she gets up and her thing was this. She goes, okay, I had something prepared, but then, I saw that we're doing a comedy show. And so, I thought what I brought was kind of silly. And so, I was racking my brain for poetry that I could do instead at the last minute, anything that I know. And she said, and Arthur Conan Doyle said of Sherlock Holmes that periodically he would clear his mind of old useless information to make way for new data. And she said, so I've always tried to practice that. I've always tried to clear my mind of old information. She said, but there's one piece of information that has been in my brain forever, that is a part of my childhood and my life and will always be with me no matter what I do. And it goes a little something like this. And then she bent down and she went, General Kenobi, years ago you fought with my father in the Clone Wars. And she did the entire help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope speech. And I believe she did a version of this in her live show, Wishful Drinking, years later. I can't lay claim to this, but I'm pretty sure it might have been born in that moment because the fucking crowd went nuts. The moment she was like, General Kenobi. And, she delivered it in this kind of I can't believe I still know this. And 200 people are like, wow. And if I know any creative, who sees a moment in life, they mark it down. I'm going to use that later on. So I remember for Wishful Drinking, there was a moment that was very similar. And I was like, never got to ask her. Regardless, I ain't taking authorship. I'm just saying she did it here in this house. She did that speech in my house. The speech that I saw her give in the hallway in that movie, Space Hallway, years ago to a little garbage can robot, and captured my imagination as a 6/7-year-old. She did it right here in this house. That is my Star Wars Day memory, man. Happy Star Wars Day, kids. May the 4th be with you. Go check out thatkevinsmithclub.com if you're into this kind of stuff. I did a whole Star Wars thing there today for my show Wake and Bake. But on Star Wars Day, since we're all probably stuck inside, use this to take a journey back into a happy childhood memory. Your favorite Star Wars movie, or all the fucking Star Wars movies. Watch all the Star Warses, man. I remember when I was a kid, I wanted to go to Grauman's Chinese Theater so bad down the street from where I live now, but I lived in New Jersey then, because R2-D2 and C-3PO and Darth Vader put their footprints in the cement in the forecourt of the Grauman's Chinese Theater. And I went there. There's a picture of me and my brother kneeling in front of it. It's up on my Instagram. My old man, was showing me all the prints and going, this is this one, this is this one, beyond the ones I knew. Like, this is Myrna Loy. She's dead now. This is Jimmy Durante. Remember, he had the big nose? He pushed his nose into the cement. Isn't that funny? There's Clint Eastwood. They're prints, not the real people. And then I loved Hollywood and entertainment and shit like that. We didn't have the internet, so you couldn't engage with it as much as people do now. But my old man goes to me, he says that stupid shit you say to a kid meant nothing. It wasn't like, I'm going to plant a seed, but just something nice to say to his kid. He goes, maybe you'll be here someday. And 40 years later, after he said that, me and Jay put our handprints and our footprints in the cement at Grauman's Chinese Theater. We're not right next to R2-D2 and C-3PO, but can't believe we're even fucking there, man. Sometimes you could love a thing so much, kids, that it infects your life, informs the rest of your life and stuff. And even though as much as I love it, some people are like, don't you want to fucking make a Star Wars? I don't have enough talent to make a Star Wars. I barely have enough talent to make a Kevin Smith movie. You think you want to fucking see me behind the camera of any Star Warsian thing? Some things I just want to still love and appreciate as a fan from a distance, like I have my whole life and stuff. Star Wars, Marvel movies, any comic book movies and stuff like that. I like that I can reference it. I like that I can meet the people involved and stuff. I've been in a Star Wars. I was in Rise of Skywalker, walking by in the background. My voice is in Force Awakens. All these tangential things are wonderful. But I don't need to be the puppet master pulling strings and shit like that, directing a Star Wars or anything like that. Some shit I'm just happy to still enjoy. If I want to ruin a movie, I can ruin one of mine. But Star Wars, that's where I'm a kid again. That's where I kick back in a theater and, oh my God, it's just like when I was a kid and my dad was sitting next to me, and it's everything, man. Star Wars is love. Trademark Disney. In any event, may the 4th be with y'all. Happy Star Wars Day. Don't forget, 2 things, thatkevinsmithclub.com, or more importantly, like our good General Leia Organa told me years ago, in the real person of Carrie Fisher, spin that microscope around sometimes. That's important in life. May the 4th be with you, everybody.